Crazy DMT stories from Reddit. So my first DMT trip was with a friend who was my dealer. I went to his house, and he used the sandwich method on a bong. When I hit it, I felt like my soul left my body. I saw the face of a guy, and then the half of it converted into a demon face, but it was all dark with white lines. I woke up and I felt like I was going to die. I remember saying "fuck." A few minutes later I did another one and I saw a pink room with an alien creature with multiple arms with eyes in them. They were waving and saying "be careful" without speaking. I opened my eyes and I saw my friend's arm with hexagons with a red point on the middle. I remember seeing him like a reptile, but not that strong. It later left me with an inner peace feeling. My first DMT experience, 2 breakthroughs, tribal baboons, and a snake goddess in an animated jungle. Please forgive me for my poor writing skills, and if this is very long, I will try to summarize it as much as possible. I would just really like to share this experience as it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. I have been taking psychedelics for a few years now, and ever since I heard about DMT, I've wanted to try it. I waited till I felt ready, and I felt like after all the trips and ego deaths I've experienced, I think I'm as ready as I'll ever be. So I got some changa and a bong and had my friend trips it, just as a precaution. I was not nervous at all. I was actually quite excited for the experience. So I get nice and comfortable, put on some headphones, and play some lo-fi, and I take the first hit. Time instantly stopped. As I exhale and move the bong, it's as if I'm watching a video, and it's speeding up then rewinding then pausing over and over. It felt as if nothing was real and I was watching a movie, but someone else had the remote. I was feeling quite nervous at this point, because it did not feel like visuals at all. My mind was as clear as ever and reality was just shattered. So I tell myself to keep going and I take a second hit. I start seeing geometric shapes in everything and they start shrinking and getting bigger and moving around, very digital-like as if I was in a game and there was a bug or glitch. I look at my hands and they look very ancient. All the lines are very defined and my skin looks like stone. I start feeling this rising pressure in my chest, similar to the feeling when you're slowly going up a roller coaster right before the drop. All of a sudden, this entity pops up in front of me, right in my face, and it's not speaking, but I can feel that it's laughing like it's enjoying scaring me. It's wearing this long tribal-like mask, which is white, with black symbols painted all over it. At this point, I can still see that I'm in my bedroom. My eyes are still open and I feel it grab my arms and it throws me with so much power, like those scenes in superhero movies where the guy is thrown through entire buildings, except instead of buildings I'm ripping through dimensions. I land in this place which looks like a jungle, but very animated. At the time it felt so real as if my actual life was just an illusion. Now just keep in mind that the entities weren't actually talking, it was more like I could feel the emotions they were feeling. So it was a lot more intense and way more powerful than actually words. So all these entities surround me, and they all had these tribal masks on. Their bodies were similar to a baboon or mandrill with what I can best describe as beige fur. On all fours they were slightly taller than me and very intimidating. At this point I was freaking out and I was pretty sure I was gonna die. I was on the verge of crying and I was just frozen in fear. So they start showing me all these things, which I unfortunately cannot recall, but they were just very intense about it. Like they really wanted me to see those things. All of a sudden I start hearing the music from the headphones and these shapes appear everywhere and they're dancing to the music. It was like the music was communicating to them, if that makes any sense at all. Then these snakes start slithering towards me and they're very bright and colorful and they seem to be enjoying the music. They start slithering all around my body and I could feel their cold, silky smooth bodies all over me. I wasn't scared, it actually calmed me down. They were telling me to just relax and be calm and then it ended. I was so freaked out after that experience and it only lasted for about 5 minutes, but I felt like I needed to go back to try understand what they were trying to tell me. I figured I'd be a lot calmer the second time now that I know what to expect. Oh, how wrong I was. After a couple hours and a nice long nap I get ready for my second attempt. This time no music, just silence. So I take the first hit and it's exactly like the first time. I take the second hit and I get the same visuals as before, but way more intense. I start panicking and feel like I made a mistake and I don't want to go back there. I then tell myself it's okay, there's no point turning back now. I take another hit and I immediately blast off right back to the animated jungle. The tribal baboon grabs me by my shirt and pulls me close, looking right into my eyes. Then it throws me with so much force that I felt like I broke the sound barrier and I land in this other part of the jungle. Then they just keep saying, look, look, do you understand? Over and over, and the biggest one keeps throwing me to different places, and they keep asking me over and over again. I break down crying and I'm telling them that I'm sorry, but I just don't understand and I'm really trying. Now I did not feel like they were hostile, they just really wanted me to understand something and they were so intense about it and I could just feel all that pressure and it was just making me panic more and more. I knew they were trying to help me and I could feel that they cared about me, but they were still freaking me out. Then they called someone and behind them is this mountain. I see this enormous white snake coming down the mountain towards me. It felt like she was a goddess, glowing blue eyes and a blue tongue, and I cannot even describe how beautiful she was. She was also insanely huge, it was as if she was larger than the universe itself. As she came towards me, I could just feel this sense of warmth and love, it instantly calmed me down. She showed me all these symbols and shapes trying to help me understand. For the life of me, I still could not figure it out. Then the baboon came back, stood on 2 legs, grabbed me and pulled me right to his face and said, "You're not ready," and hurled me like a baseball. I landed back in my bedroom and opened my eyes, trembling in fear. This trip was about 7 minutes. I still do not know what the lesson was that I needed to learn, but I definitely feel like I need to take some time to focus on growing myself before I take DMT again. I will definitely take it again. I just know that now is not the time, because I'm certain the same thing is just going to keep happening unless I change. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Have a great day and an epic trip. I smoked some powdered DMT last night. My soul literally left my body. My boyfriend said that I was limp, my eyes rolled in the back of my head, I was barely breathing. And he had blow onto my mouth, he was not sure what to do. However, he did feel like everything was gonna be okay. He said he knew I wasn't home even though I was nowhere to be found. He almost called 911, but I came to, and I was so shaky and smiling, it was like dream. I thought that I was with him in heaven. I saw all these different entities and people, but can't remember their faces. Oh, said the name John out loud, I don't know why though. They were floating around me holding me up, I was weightless. It was the most euphoric feeling I've ever experienced. I had no idea that I passed out. Has this happened to anybody else? And I do DMT quite frequently for ceremonial and spiritual purposes. However, I've never experienced such an incredible breakthrough. It was that near-death experience I've heard about. Can you overdose on DMT? I did some research and it's not likely, and I have not found anyone who has overdosed on it. First real breakthrough. What? Loaded about 50 milligrams in a GDG. But now, I don't know. I eyeballed it. Was a deep in the GDG bowl. First time ever using the GDG. I put 6 screens on the bottom and then a ½ inch of stainless steel scrubber that I stuffed in tightly. Put the spice on the stainless steel scrubber. Put the ceramic filter on and then took a hit just to start melting the spice into the steel scrubber. I put the pipe down and then found a YT video. Like music to listen to while on DMT. I meditated for about 5 minutes to see if I had anything I was stressed about. There was nothing. So, I started out by knowing that everything was okay in the real world. This is like my 5th time smoking DMT. I thought I broke through before because I had like 11 toes and I closed my eyes and they were still there. I know now, that was the waiting room. This time I blew through that phase at light speed. I was sitting in my office, where I spend most of my time. It was 2:18 a.m. I put on a meditation video with fractals and cycle type music. Then I picked up the pipe. Put the torch directly to ceramic filter and seen vapor start coming. No burn or harshness. I was going to take 3 hits like I do with the machine. I know now that the machine is not very efficient and I was burning a lot of spice. Because while holding in this one big hit bigger than it felt in my lungs, everything started vibrating intensely. And melting slowly like it was wax, and now it's getting hot. A weird indescribable sound. Like me being ripped through the fabric of spacetime. Then I started to blow out the vapor. The vapor I blew out turned solid and starting smashing around me, breaking things. My computer turned to squares, then crunched like a piece of paper. Everything went white except a rectangle with rectangle blocks of like 4 colors on right side. Like on a TV. I was sucked deeper and deeper into it. In steps, like a clock ticking. Every step was like BAM. Bam. And the visuals were just colored squares with white behind them. Words that I can see appear that say, "Don't run and jump in bed with Ashley, it's okay." Words that I can see appear in a different font, "Don't worry, you're breathing." I also feel these words. Words, "It's okay," in a cursive type font. Then everything exploded and went crazy. Weird looking guys, kind of like the Hawaiian juice guy. We're jumping up and down holding signs that said, "Look," and was just fucking madness. No theme or anything. Looked like buildings or blocks with symbols inside them. Colors, mostly red and yellow, the words, "Look" and "Pay attention" everywhere. But I couldn't. It was too intense to pick anything out. Whenever I felt fear, I couldn't see what they were showing me. But it wasn't real fear. It was a weird kind of fear, a primal fear of not knowing what's happening. I didn't know what death was. And I didn't care. There were signs with arrows and words guiding me. I still didn't remember I did DMT. Then words appeared, "Are you still with us?" This was also said out loud in a woman's voice. Then I remembered, oh yeah, I just did DMT. Holy fuck. Then I thought I wasn't breathing for a second, but I remembered what they told me in the beginning. That I'm breathing. And then everything was completely different. I was watching a TV in some other house, and the same commercial kept playing like 4 times. I don't know what it was. But the human guy in it looked at me and was talking to me saying nonsense. He would then turn into a 3-eyed thing and flicked a skinny tongue back and forth, but in a happy way. But quite scary looking. The GVG was sitting in front of the TV in the DMT world. The guy was trying to get me to forget that I took a hit and get me to take another one. Like I was a part of the loop too, and I kept looking at the GVG at the same point of the commercial. I had to literally fight taking another hit. Even if I wanted to. I was paralyzed. It looped like this 4 times. Until I realized I wasn't watching a real commercial. Whose fucking house is this? This is where I thought I wanted to lay next to Ashley and be safe. But then I remembered it told me not to run in there and do that. Even if I wanted to. I still couldn't move. My own voice told me, "You planned for this. This isn't what you wanted, what you trained for. Enjoy it," but was hard to pay attention. I was seeing all kinds of blocky stuff again. I couldn't think or say words at all. But I could understand what they said to me. It was all so amazing, and the universe kept saying, "Pay attention, look at this, hurry, look." There were signs strategically placed around guiding me through. Like I was there and left them for myself. They were perfect. They were telling me things like everything is okay, and just pay attention, and haha, I still couldn't pick anything out they wanted me to pay attention to. I was in pure amazement. My computer was still there playing meditation sounds and had fractals on it. I kept thinking it was almost over, but then it's like bam, I was thrown somewhere else. I felt like I was getting pushed around. I closed my eyes, finally I think. I don't know. And was black with spinning faces. Like ghostly souls. I felt myself looking down at them like they were in hell. Then I remembered to breathe again. It felt like I was there hours. I opened my eyes, I think. And tried to look at the time on my computer, and then something put a black box over it. They blocked the time off before I could focus on it. The computer was breaking into square segments, with each segment spinning independently. There were random things doing back flips really fast across the screen, I wanna say. Was like a video playing in my mind, and I was just a viewer. I started coming back to reality in waves. Seeing my computer then tripping out again when I thought it was over. It was 2:26 when they let me look at the time. This blew my fucking mind. It was almost war of and I started crying. Because it was so beautiful and crazy, and I'm okay. I sat there for 40 more minutes. Unable to speak or move. Now I've almost done all the drugs now, except heroin, because fuck heroin. And me and my girlfriend tripped a lot. I had a spiritual experience on mushrooms years ago, and I remembered %100 we live multiple lives, and we are eternal beings. Who left the signs? This stuff is fucking strong. I've taken many adventures, but sometimes in the lower dimensions I see lower level beings suck as clowns or jesters, very colorful and wearing these big hats and white gloves. The clown's hair sucked around their clothing in different bright colors, almost like a suit made from Fruit Loops. Whenever I see these clowns in my journeys at first seem nice and playful, but as soon as I mention Jesus or ask of his existence, these clowns are no longer playful and nice, they turn very aggressive, evil-looking and scary. At first I would feel fear and tell them to get away, but they would get scarier and more aggressive. Whenever I would speak love to these clowns, I no longer feel fear, but peace. Every time I see these beings, I talk love, not hate or fear, and it conquers the situation. Literally every time I mention Jesus, these beings get very demonic. I don't know why though. Has anyone had a similar experience? If anyone has a scary journey, remember to think and speak love. Love truly conquers. Also I realize, depending on the music will depend on the journey. If these beings don't like the music or sounds, you'll know. I try for something peaceful and relaxing. After meditation, of course. First breakthrough. This is an experience that was on February 21st, 20. It was written only hours after the experience. I am going to try my best with this. It was so profound and bizarre, scary, beautiful, meaningful all in one. I was ready for this, but wasn't at the same time, so we all got comfy in the room our friend Billy provided for us all. A pretty decent hotel to be fair. Billy burned some sage and we set our own intentions. I volunteered to go first since I introduced Thr Dimitri to all three people there. My brother, Billy, and his cousin. I tried to use the scales we had. They didn't read anything. Definitely wasn't the right ones. So I guessed it. It was my first time with freebase, I've always had changa. So TBH, I didn't have a clue. I put quite a bit in, because I knew I needed this. Quite a few times I've been gifted some deems and changa and guided others through it without me having it. It's been a while, so I was ready for a real adventure. I would have said at least 0.075. If not more TBF. My brother expertly got the deems to start bubbling, without the glass getting burned. As I lay on the bed, I introduced my lips onto the smoking pipe and took a nice, slow, almost gentle breath like Tokay. I held it for about 10 seconds and took another. This second Tokay hit me hard. I held that in for about the same time as the first. I could feel myself going, and I always remember the third Tokay even with the changa. I knew it was important, so I leaned forward. My body was trembling at the movement and strain of holding my body up. I got a good last Tokay in. Held it and put my head down into the pillow. First of all, I just saw white. Like a bright light. Then it suddenly disappeared and I was immersed into this other world. The first bit didn't make sense. I am still trying to comprehend. But what I can remember is the world was mechanical. Everywhere was like cogs, like inside a watch. It's the only way to describe the world swirling and morphing into isn't self. Coming out of the fast-paced cogs were all manner of strange things. Like beings, but nothing like I've seen before. These beings kept coming at me really fast and showing me something, but merging with the environment. The swirling clogs, it is indescribable. So much happened that I'm like. After some crazy encounters and thoughts of I won't be doing DMT for a very long time, I kept saying I get it. All of a sudden these machine-like beings stopped time and created a bubble around us. There was loads of them and they kept getting right up to my face and screaming at me to do it. Terrence McKenna DMT trip report didn't come to mind as I was like a crying little girl in there saying what? Do what? Then I felt this strange feeling in my belly. It came up like a burp and I shit you not I made a noise I've never made before. It was like a zombie's general HHH, kind of like that, in the trip though the sound actually made objects. I was so shook from it I couldn't take it in. Then time went on. I moved through the mechanics of this world, still morphing ECT and outlines of people were coming out of the cogs, but still made from the cogs lol, they tried pulling me into their space. I looked away and they would retreat back, almost like my attention to them would cause them to come out. Everything was moving super fast. It was so real. Like super virtual reality. Fuck, it was so intense it literally felt my soul had gone through a complete cleansing. So strange and I defo believe I saw a classic McKenna breakthrough. I say that due to his popular machine elves old Terrence was right. I certainly see why he would call them that tbh. When I started to came back I could believe it. I could hear my friends speaking and it sounded so mad, it was like they kept saying the same thing really fast but their words bounced of each other's. It was a very humbling experience and defo was more than I expected. I also learned a lesson. That DMT really isn't for everyone, it should be treated with the utmost respect. I think a few chonga pipe wouldn't put you there I'm not sure. I've never gone there before and had quite a few goes on the chonga. I think whoever would accept the experience like I had should do it. I think it's all on the tokes and holding it in for longer. Don't fill your lungs too quick. And suck the vapor in really lightly. I think it makes a difference. And holding each one in for long. Having someone to burn the pipe and hold it defo helped too. One less things to worry about. I could lay straight back and enjoy /dread/hate/love the experience all at the same time. Integration to come now. I really think it will take a lot of time to get over this before I feel the anxiety from the calling again. Hope you enjoyed my report. It really don't do the experience justice, it really don't. Vaporizing DMT. OMG. That's what came to my mind right after I inhaled the huge hit from my dab rig. I bought the rig about 3 weeks ago and have been teaching myself how to burn the nail just right. After a few fail attempts I gave it another try early this morning after my overnight shift. So I gather my supplies and I get comfy in my bed. I loaded the exact amount to lift off and I eyeballed the amount that I needed. Note to self. I need to start weighing it because honestly I think I put too much. LOL anyways, so I start heating up my nail to prepare it for liftoff. It gets to the temperature and I added the magic. I inhaled and boom. I automatically thought to myself, fuck, Jillian, you did too much, because now you're fucking dying. I know the feeling all too well about DMT taking your breath away, but holy fuck, DMT took my whole being away. I literally felt like I was dying. I no longer existed and I remember thinking, I don't want to go anymore and whatever was with me was saying, well too late because you already did it. LOL, so right after I heard or felt that, I let go and just let it be. Now this is the part what I can't remember. I can't remember the ending of my trip. It's super foggy, but I was just floating around in nothing. LOL, so when I came back to my body I was shocked that I wasn't dead and I was surprised it was only because I was on DMT. Like I forgot I even smoked it and that I was on a trip. It was fucking insane. The feeling of you getting yourself being swept away like erasing from existence is the most intense feeling I have ever felt in my life. So there's that. I'm pretty sure I had a ego death experience and am excited to go back and this time, I'm going to remember everything. Oh, and I'm going to weigh my next dosage. LOL. My first DMT breakthrough. The experience that I'm about to share is the second time I ever smoked DMT. I was 15 at the time in my freshman year of high school. Freshman year was the year I really got into psychedelics. The first time I had smoked DMT, I didn't smoke enough to have a profound experience, and I was also on weed and Molly, so it didn't have as intense of an effect. I bought the DMT from the plug, and then I went to spend the night at a friend's house who I planned to smoke the DMT with. After his parents had gone to sleep, we snuck out of his house and went to an out-of-sight bench that was on the outskirts of the woods behind his neighborhood. I'm not proud of this, but I decided to smoke the DMT out of an apple using the sandwich method. The sandwich method is when you put down a layer of weed into your bowl, and then sprinkle your dose of DMT on top of the weed, and then add another layer of weed. I made an apple pipe and then loaded the weed and then the DMT into my apple bowl, and then cleared my mind. I then lit the top layer of weed, vaporizing the DMT. I took a big hit and held it. As I was exhaling that hit, I started to feel funny. I took another large hit and held it. And after that hit, I started hearing a buzzing sound, and I felt a buzzing sensation all over my body. I managed to get one more hit before these beams of light came down all around me from the sky, and I shot up into this black space, and it felt like I was floating. And then I saw these rotating rings of an alien language all around me. I started floating forward and the rings went away. I floated past a giant fluorescent glowing skull, and after I had passed the skull, my body started flying forward very fast and it felt like I was going through a wormhole, because there were bright lights all around me. I was then transported into a completely other world. I assumed someone else's soul and consciousness, and forgot about who I was completely. In this world I lived in Africa and had an African wife who had a bald head. I also had children with this woman, and I could access memories about my children. When I came out of that world I pretty much became fully conscious. I have never felt anything remotely close to that feeling. Having a complete loss of ego and experiencing life from a whole different perspective is something I had always been interested in ever since I started trying psychedelics. When I regained consciousness, I assumed that there would be at least a little bit more DMT in the bowl, so I took another hit. It didn't send me back to where I wanted to go, but it did send me to a rock concert that was being played by skeletons. It seemed as though it was completely original music, but it was probably something I had heard before. After that night, my perspective on some things like reality were definitely changed. One of if not the craziest psychedelic experiences I've ever had. DMT trip, the reborn experience. I remember inhaling the DMT and feeling as if I was inhaling some sort of ancient shaman in vaporized form. After a few hits, it felt as if I was pushed back into the seat of a rocket taking off into hyperspace. Everything morphed into a black tunnel. Although I do not remember much of the first part of the trip, I know it was there and that it was very intense. I vaguely remember some sort of snapshot of my life flashing by in a fast, but at the same time slow-paced compilation. If you would have told me that the trip lasted days, I would have believed it. The concept of time is pretty much non-existent in DMT world. After this part of the trip I opened my eyes for some reason. I saw my friends sitting around me. They looked more like blue shape-shifting aliens though. I recognized them, but at the same time I was confused as to why they were sitting around me. As I heard them make weird sounds, I tried to make sounds myself and figure out who they were and what they were doing there. I also had a hard time figuring out who and what I was and what the hell I was doing. Come to think of it, this peculiar interaction with my friends could be seen as the alien encounter part of the trip. I pretty much lost all consciousness. Considering that just saying this sentence sounds weird, it's hard to imagine how bizarre it is to experience a loss of consciousness. Failing to try and make sense of the situation made me feel uncomfortable and panicky. I was briefly stuck in some sort of loop, looking in the same directions and thinking/seeing the same things a few times. This part of the trip was very scary, and I could feel myself getting swallowed into a fear-fueled spiral. Luckily, this didn't take too long. Once I fully accepted the unknowingness of the situation and closed my eyes, it was almost like I was in Valhalla. I closed my eyes and was teleported to a colorful spiral, accompanied with a strong feeling of euphoria. It was as if I had conquered my demons, which were propelling me towards uncertainty and fear. During this victory part of the trip I was flying through a spiraling tunnel filled with purple and white light flares. My body felt as if it was ice cream melting in the sun on a hot summer's day. It was the most satisfying and relaxing feeling I have experienced. Simply rubbing my fingers felt as if my hands were made of dough. As I slowly opened my eyes, my friends were still vibrating in an array of colors. They strongly resembled the character in the Scream painting. It took another minute or so until I managed to say anything which wasn't some sort of gibberish. All in all, this was definitely one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. It's hard to explain the degree of mindfuck experienced when you have no clue who or what you are. After the trip, it seemed as if all negative energy left my body. A sense of inner peace was left behind. I guess this is what it feels like to be born. Thrown into the world with no clue who or what you are, a sensory overload of alien-looking people staring down at you. No wonder most babies cry like crazy when they're born. Thank you for making it through entire video. Please like and subscribe.